Oh, I forgot Jen.
Soki nalongola motema ya kolinga bapesa ngai nazali komituna pona nini bolingo ezali injuste boye
O sheri kobosana kateo atandele yoko kanisanga O papiko wanga teo naza kofuta masumu ya nani
Esko yebaka bolingo ya solo tafungola motema nanga otala Esko yebaka bolingo na pesa yo bolingo ya basantu Olingi na lata susi lokola biju na bomba souffrance nanga bolingo bateyaka biso ezali moko kasi ndenge ya kolinga ekeseni
O sheri kobosana kateo atandele yoko kanisanga O papiko wanga teo naza kofuta masumu ya nani
Esko yebaka bolingo esengi baconcession na boy amour ya sens unique Esko yebaka ndenge
Everyone, we're just gonna take a few minutes to let everyone join to get started again. Hola a todos, nos vamos a dar unos minutos para que las demás personas se unan y luego empezamos.
On ne vit qu'une seule fois, chérie, avec le haut et le bas sur terre. Kekele, transcontinental. Angai nakobala te. Angai nakobala te. Angai nakobala te. Angai nakobala te. Nabali bolingo nabali susi. Angai nakobala te. Nabali bolingo nabali makambo. Nakobala te. Angai nakobala te. Angai nakobala te. Nga nakobala te. Angai nakobala te. Imonzemba na tika te. Angai nakobala te. Imonzemba na pena boya te. Angai nakobala te. Angai nakobala te. Angai nakobala te. Nakobala lisusu te. Angai nakobala te. Eyo. 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 Eyo yo. Eyo yo. Eyo yo yo. Eyo yo yo. Eyo yo yo yo. Eyo yo yo yo. Eyo yo 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 yo. Eyo yo yo yo. Angai nakobala te o. Angai nakobala te. Nakobala lisusu te. Angai nakobala te. Oka. Oka kekele, transcontinental. Oloba mingi te. Leva. Oka. Oka mama. Oka. 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 Oka gege. Coup de foudre. Oka. Oka. Coup de froid. Oka. Oka. Coup de ten. Ah ah. Hey yo.
Hola, buenas tardes. Hello, good afternoon. Soy Betty, gerente de programas en ACTA. I'm Betty, program manager at ACTA. Voy a estar apoyándoles hoy y les damos la bienvenida a esta sesión de oportunidades de financiación 2022. So I'm going to be here supporting you all. Welcome to our 2022 funding opportunities. Y nada más les quiero avisar que es un evento bilingüe en español y en inglés. Entonces, antes que diga más, I want to just let you all know that this is a bilingual event in Spanish and in English. Entonces, si no eres bilingüe en español y en inglés, vas a querer escoger tu lenguaje haciendo clic en el globo que debe de aparecer en la parte de abajo de tu pantalla. So if you're not fully bilingual in Spanish and in English, you're going to want to choose your language by clicking on the globe at the bottom of your screen. The globe should say interpretation. El globo debería de decir interpretación. Si estás conectándote por tu teléfono o algún otro aparato que no sea una computadora, deberías de ver esa opción bajo más en tu teléfono y escoger interpretación de lenguajes. If you are joining on a phone or some other device that's not a computer, you should be able to see that option under more on your phone. Entonces vamos a poder probar la interpretación.
So we're going to be able to try the interpreting to make sure that it's working for everybody.
Make sure that it's working for everyone in the space. Entonces, si las personas que han escogido...
So if the people who have chosen English, can somebody let us know if you can hear the interpreter saying this in English to know that it's working? I see that Jen is saying yes. Hopefully others have that as well.
If anyone who's chosen Spanish, if you can show me that you can hear the interpreter saying this in Spanish, or you can chat me. We did test it before, so hopefully it's all working. Entonces, voy a nada más decir unas cositas más.
I'm just going to say a couple things more in Spanish, and so you should be hearing interpreting right now. But if you have any problem, please let me know, and I can support you with whatever problem you're having. And so just to finish, we'd like to thank Leah and Alexia who are here interpreting today. They are two interpreters who are dedicated to putting into practice language justice, which is a value that we share in the Alliance for California Traditional Arts. And this framework includes the right that all people have to express themselves in their chosen languages. And that also includes an effort to think critically about gendered language. And so for people who are listening in Spanish, you're going to hear that sometimes we use the E instead of O or A to pronounce some words in Spanish. For example, in this word, bienvenides, if you would like to be connected to the interpreters, you can please let us know and we can connect you. I think with that, we are finished with this announcement, and I hope that you enjoy the session and we will see each other soon. And I will give the mic to Jen.
Thank you, Betty. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our next info session, exploring ACTA's 2022 funding opportunities. We'll have a chance to review and take your questions about the Apprenticeship Program and about the Living Cultures Program. Just a few housekeeping details before we get started. Please feel free to write your name or the name of your organization, your art practice, where you're located in the chat. Please introduce yourself. We will be recording this session so that folks can access the playback. So if you're uncomfortable with being recorded, now's your cue to either turn off your camera or mute yourself. Of course, keep yourself muted in general, unless we're taking your question later on. We'll allow you to go ahead and speak your question out loud or take your question in the chat box. So for now, I will pass it over to my colleague, Melody Takata, who will get us started.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melody Takata. I am a cultural artist and program manager for Living Cultures Grant. And just to go over briefly what our agenda is for today, we're going to quickly just give you an overview of the Alliance for California Traditional Arts History and Focus, and then talk about our apprenticeship program that is open now and allow for questions and answers following that. And then we will move into our Living Cultures Grant section, application process, and then take questions and answers there, and then leading into Submittable platform, getting started on the online application. Okay, so moving on to what is ACTA and who we are. Established in 1997, ACTA is a nonprofit organization that promotes and supports ways for cultural traditions to thrive now and into the future by providing advocacy, resources, and connections for California traditional artists and their communities. So what are traditional arts? Folk and traditional arts are those art forms that are learned as part of the cultural life of a group of people whose members share a common heritage, language, religion, occupation, or region. These expressions are deeply rooted in and reflective of a community's shared standards of beauty, values, and/or life experiences, in that way affirming the culture of the community. So we are now ready to go into talking about the apprenticeship program, and I will pass this back to Jennifer Jameson to talk about that. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, and I think I failed to introduce myself. My name is Jen, and I'm a program manager based in LA County at the Alliance for California Traditional Arts, and I have the special pleasure of managing our apprenticeship program. So the apprenticeship program, the applications are open right now, and the deadline for submitting your application is April the 26th. 2022. This is an opportunity really focused on one-on-one cultural transmission between two artists, a mentoring artist and an apprentice. It is a $3,000 contract that's made to the pair, but specifically to the mentoring artist, in order to offer intensive one-on-one training in a specific traditional art form to an eligible California-based apprentice for roughly 6 months to a year. So we ask that apprenticeship pairs be working together regularly at least 6 months out of the term, but many opt to take the full year length term to work together. This year, apprenticeships will be supporting activities between July 15 and June 30th of next year. So just a couple of weeks short of a one-year term. And again, applications will close just before midnight Pacific time on April the 26th. You can access the application by going to our website, the apprenticeship page. You can apply either in English or in Spanish. So again, this is an opportunity with an express focus on one-on-one intensive learning and cultural transmission between a mentor artist and an apprentice. The mentoring artist and apprentice self-select. So sometimes there's an apprentice who's really interested in finding a teacher who can support them in deepening their learning, and then other times there's a mentoring artist who's really on the looking out for a student, an apprentice who can really take on and be a good sort of culture bearer for the expression. So you apply together in one application, and I'll share a little bit more about this later, but a new feature that we have available to apprenticeship applicants via the Submittable platform is that you can now invite collaborators on the application. So previously, one person would kind of steward the application, although it engages, bits from the apprentice, bits from the mentoring artist, and bits that you work on together. Now you can actually invite collaborators almost the same way where you might work on a Google Doc together, where two people are working on one document together. So a little bit more on that later, but that's good to know. This is a self-designed curriculum and work plan, so it's really flexible, but we do want you to kind of come together and propose a specific, a rough plan that you can sort of guide your learning, but it's pretty flexible. And we ask that at the end of your term of working together that there's a public presentation. This is really flexible. It can be really low key. It can be very a big production if you want to. It can be online. It can be in person. It can be a demonstration, a lecture, a dialogue. Whatever feels good and is manageable for the two of you, but we do ask that the public sharing is centering the apprentice in particular and the apprentice's learnings. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, the mentor artist and the apprentice self-select and they submit an application together. A mentor artist is someone who is recognized as an exemplary practitioner of a traditional art form by their community and peers. And a prospective apprentice should demonstrate an intention to enhance their established skills and cultural understanding of the art form by working with a mentor artist. So when we talk about an apprentice for this program, we're really looking for apprentices who already have demonstrated commitment in this expression, have a little bit of skin in the game, right? So they've got some work samples that they could share of their work, and they're not starting from square one, but they're ready to deepen their learning. Both participants must be based in California, and the mentor artist must be authorized to work in the US. So who is ineligible? We only have a few things that make someone ineligible. So if you participated in 2021, the 2021 apprenticeship program, we ask that you take 1 year off before applying again. And then the other items are contemporary studio crafts or the reproduction of antiques, and recreations of historic or village folk traditions that attempt to reenact lifestyles from the distant past. So this is a program that really emphasizes living traditions that aren't just attempting to reenact historic traditions. So I wanted to share some examples of some recent apprenticeship pairings just to give you a sense. And actually, I think we've got a few apprenticeship former participants in the room here. Youngmin Lee trained with apprentice Stephanie Rue in Korean Bojagi in the Bay Area in 2019. Faisal Zaidan worked with apprentice Nicole Maria Hofschneider in Arabic frame drumming, also in the Bay Area. Luis Torres mentored his son and apprentice Arthur Torres in Andean music from Bolivia in LA's San Fernando Valley. And we do get this question often, can relatives apply and be in the program together? The answer is yes, there are no limitations to that. Son, sister, aunt, grandparent, there's nothing, yeah, we're open to it. Dixie Rogers, who is Karuk, worked with apprentice Julia McCovey, who is Yurakan Karuk in Karuk baby baskets in Humboldt County. And Z Bedrasian shared her traditions of Armenian home cooking with her apprentice Julianne Burke in Fresno. Oh, and there's Youngmin, Youngmin and Steph Rue. So the review process is fairly simple. When an applicant submits an application, I will review everything that comes in. If there is something glaring that is missing or something that's a little bit unclear, I will be in touch with you and just make sure that we have all the information that you're able to present before going to panel review. Then we'll move the applications forward to a group of panelists. So we invite former apprenticeship participants, artists, practitioners, scholars, community stakeholders, academics, etc., to come in and review the material and make recommendations to ACTA's Board of Directors on funding. And we look at who is applying, and we consider who to invite to review the material, and we really seek to make sure that there are folks who can really speak to the forms represented in the applicant pool. After that, the Board of Directors will make approvals, and we'll be able to notify shortly after that if you received the apprenticeship or did not receive the apprenticeship. And that notification would be made through the Submittable application messaging channel. So here's the review criteria, and this is very important to keep in mind when you're building out your application. You want to really make sure that you're speaking to these criteria. We're looking at traditionality, artistic quality, commitment and skill, shared community membership. So that can look like different things. That can look like shared religious community membership, regional, occupational, ethnic, racial, cultural membership. So just speak to that. The feasibility of the project. So for instance, sometimes we have wonderful potential projects come our way, and the mentoring artist might be in the Bay Area. The apprentice might be, say, in LA or Orange County. And that's a little bit more difficult than someone who lives, 10 minutes away, but it's certainly possible, especially in this day and age with so much remote learning. So we just ask that you kind of speak to what might that look like given the distance. Does it involve, part remote learning? Does it involve 1 or 2 intensives in the Bay Area together? Tell us sort of how you're going to manage the feasibility of the project. And then urgency for endangered art forms. You want to speak to that if your expression if there's urgency for sustaining it. Again, this is a mutual application. That means one application that the mentor and the apprentice both fill out together and submit. So you're going to apply via the Submittable platform, and you'll have a chance to fill out your section and collaborate on the mutual section. We ask that both the mentor artist and the apprentice submit work samples. So we'll give you some specifics on what we're looking for there, but generally, a visual artist are presenting photographs. There's an option for a video, and performing artists are submitting mostly video, a little bit of audio, depending on your expression. Do your best with what you have available to you to, pick good work samples. So for instance, if you're a dancer, we want to make sure to see your feet very clearly. Doesn't have to be anything high tech, but do your best with what's available to you so that we can really see and understand the excellence of your work. You also have the option to submit support materials, brochures, clippings about your work as well. And we ask that each artist, so both the mentoring and the apprentice, submit at least 1 letter of support. You can choose to submit 2 per artist if you'd like. That second one is optional. And we're looking for people in your community of practice to speak to the excellence of your work, if you're a mentoring artist, the sort of level of mastery that you have reached, and community recognition. And for apprentices, we're looking to understand that you're ready to really deepen your practice. And you'll also fill out the budget form. It's a pretty simple budget, and it just tells the story of what it will take to do this work together. And I'll review that shortly in a moment. Oh, here it is. So here's an example of what a budget form might look like. So all of the budget forms must total $3,000, which is the total of the contract. We oftentimes, it really just depends on what your expression is and what you need to carry out the work. But oftentimes we see folks applying the full 3,000 or close to the full 3,000 to the mentor artist fee, and that's perfectly fine. Alternately, if you want to budget and allocate out of that $3,000 funds for travel or funds for materials, then this is where you would tell us that story of what it's going to take to get the work done. And the funds go directly to the mentor artist, and the mentor artist manages those funds. Okay, so again, some important dates. April 26, 2022 is the deadline. You want to make sure to apply before midnight on that date. Always a good idea to submit a couple of days before at least. Notification to applicants will be early to mid-July. It's a pretty condensed timeline this year, so we're going to notify you and then you can get started immediately. And the apprenticeship program will run from July the 15th of this year to June 30th of next year. Okay, questions?
We did have a question from, well, there was a question from Jem a bit ago, if the recording of the meeting will be sent to registrants.
Yes, we will be sending this recording out. There is also a recording of the March 10th session. It's already up on our website on the Apprenticeship Program page and on the Living Cultures Program page. But we will also upload this version in English and the version in Spanish.
Another question from Ranjita. If we choose to do a 6-month project, will the time frame be July 15th to December 15th?
Hi, yes. So in the application, you actually will give us some rough dates. So within that time frame, you would say, okay, so we want to take exactly 6 months to do the work. So that's exactly right. You could start right at the top of that timeline and end around that December timeline, as long as it's 6 months out from, technically we want you to start 6 months out from your orientation date. So when you receive the apprenticeship, we're in touch with you immediately about completing your contract and getting an orientation scheduled. So it might happen just a little bit after the top of the timeline, but it's really flexible and it's just sort of a rough guesstimate in the application.
Esas son las preguntas que vi en el chat.
So those are the questions that I saw on the chat, but if you do have any other question right now, you can raise your hand using the reaction button, and you can just say it out loud. You can ask your question, and if not, you can also choose to keep posting your questions on the chat, and I will be able to read them out loud. I think that Ranjita, would you like to, do you have another question?
Yes. Can you hear me? Okay. So I have a couple of questions. So I wanted to know, should the project have a name?
Hey, Ranjita.
Hi.
The project does not need to have a name for the apprenticeship program. I think in Living Cultures it does. So no, there's not a field for a name, but if you can speak to the focus of your proposal, and there's a few questions that will guide you in that in the application, that will do just fine.
Okay. My next question is, should the timeline of this project be presented during the orientation? Or is there any time that you would request, like milestones that we have planned for this project? Do we need to present that to ACTA?
So in your application, you will give us sort of a rough sketch of what you would like to carry out. And in that, you'll be able to, again, we really understand that it's a rough sketch and that it might change in practice, right? So you might, really start out with one particular focus and it might need to tweak a little bit over time, and that's perfectly fine, and we understand that. But it's good to go in with a plan if you're focusing on a particular repertoire or style or technique or instrumentation, whatever it might be. Tell us about that. And you also will speak to your ideas for a public sharing at the end of the term. So we won't hold you exactly to that, but if you can sort of give us a rough sketch of what you would hope to carry out for a public sharing.
Got it. And my next question is there a rubric that will be shared with us when the grant is given? Kind of, this is what we are looking for. And, if this has not been met, will someone say that to us? Or I don't know how to put it. Or just wrap it up. Is there a rubric?
Not quite a rubric, but during the orientation, we lay out a few benchmarks. It's really a trust-based program. We really rely on you all to move through the program in a way that needs to happen, and we're not hovering over you. So you'll meet with me at the beginning. We'll discuss your project and the flow of the program in the orientation meeting. And then about halfway through, we'll have a midpoint visit. In the past, it's been in person. I would travel, or another staff member at ACTA would travel and visit with you in your home or your studio. It's been online the last couple of years. I think we're hoping that we can do more in person this year, but that's just a chance to check in with you all. And you can share a little bit of what you've been working on. And then at the end of the term, you will have your public sharing within your local community or online. And if you have a link for that or something like that, we'll take that. But it doesn't have to be recorded. But what you do at the end of your apprenticeship term is you fill out a couple of evaluation forms. So the mentoring artist will respond to a few questions and say, tell us a little bit about how the apprenticeship went. Did anything shift or change, surprises, challenges, any comments or suggestions for the program? The apprentice will do that as well. And you'll also give us some information about your public sharing. So it's fairly simple. It's not a highly scrutinized process, but we're in touch along the way to support you.
Got it. If I may ask a couple of other questions, is that all right? Okay. So I read on this page that the materials that are in, the programs that go into ACTA, they go into the permanent archival collections with many materials accessible to the public for educational purposes. So I was just curious to know who would need or who would see these materials?
That's a great question. So that really refers to when we go out and do a site visit with you. So if it's online, it would be a Zoom recording. If it's in person, it would be an ACTA staff member recording a video interview with you, maybe recording a little bit of the two of you during a lesson. And we take that material, we give you a copy of that material, and we put it in our apprenticeship collection. At this point, we don't have a ton of capacity to make that material widely accessible to the general public, but if someone has a specific request, then we can help accommodate that if it's for educational purposes only. But we do hope that eventually we'll have a chance to accession our collection into a public or state archive or something like that. So that's the hope eventually, that that material will be more publicly accessible for the long haul.
Awesome. One last question. So I read on your page that it said, we ask that each apprenticeship pair implement a survey at their public sharing, which ACTA will provide. So I was wondering what this survey is about.
Yes, the survey is a survey that we pass out at all of our ACTA programs, and it just gets a sense of who's in the audience at your public sharing. So who is being reached by extension through the apprenticeship program.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
We do have a couple other questions, Jen. One is, can mentors apply with multiple apprentices?
Yeah, that's I would say it's a rare instance that we make that exception, because the program scope is really, really emphasizing one-on-one transmission. But I think that we know that cultural transmission happens in community as well. And so I think we're really open to hearing your ideas if you want to make the case for that. I think we're happy to consider that and see if we do have capacity for that. Alternately, oftentimes, there might be a particular apprentice that a mentor is working with, but there's no reason why some lessons can't happen in wider community settings. So I think that, there's a little bit of flexibility baked in, but we still have an express focus on transmission between two people in that case.
And then another question, could media filmmaking be considered in the apprenticeship program?
Hi, Quentin. I think I would need to know more about your idea in order to give you a good answer.
Hi, Jen. This would be about the 50 years of traditional music, performing music for 50 years. Music of the age, traditional music and dance. And so it would be about that, but being that as part of a project, I have to do a documentary film. There's a documentary filmmaker I'd really like to work with. And I would ask him if he would be a mentor for this project, and we work together. And because I would really learn a lot, and this is kind of the project of the year, to put all that art, music, and dance, and how we kind of brought Bolivia and Peru and the Andes to San Francisco over those 50 years.
Yeah.
So it would be more that.
Yeah, it sounds like a really wonderful project. I think that it sounds like a better fit for the Living Cultures program, because it's really project-based rather than, from what I'm hearing, maybe we haven't had an apprenticeship with a focus on filmmaking. I think we'd have to do some real thinking about the traditionality of that. But I'm happy to hop on the phone and learn more and see what we can, where there might be some potential. Thank you. I know we're running out of time, so I'll pass it on maybe to Melody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you. And thank you for the question. Hopefully, maybe it'll get clarified with Living Cultures grant. So going into Living Cultures grant, we're just going to do an overview of the important dates to remember for this application. It is open now and will close on May 3rd on the 2022, just before midnight. So as Jennifer was noting on the applications for apprenticeship, it is always good to try to submit a couple of days before, just in case there are some technical glitches that prevent you from, say, loading up your work sample or something else that is just not sure what's going on. Then notifications, once that deadline has finished, notifications will be given by June 15th. And projects can take place between July 15th of this year until next year, July 15th, 2023. Then awardees will need to submit, excuse me, a final report by August 15th, the following month. The maximum amount award that will be given for Living Cultures grant is $5,000. It is an online application on Submittable, as we were talking before. And if you need to apply by mail, you must contact the program manager, who is me, if you can, by April 10th, so that we can discuss how to be sure to have all the materials turned in by May 3rd. Okay. Eligibility. So what is new this year in terms of eligibility? Due to funding, Living Cultures Grant Round 17 is only open to those cultural groups or nonprofit organizations located in one of the following 10 Bay Area counties listed here, which is Alameda, Contra Costa, San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, Solano, Marin, Napa, and Sonoma. And as we're showing down here in the application, you will need to upload to show proof of an address in one of these counties. Okay. Some of the other eligibility questions that you will come across in the application is that showing that you are a nonprofit 501c3 organization or a tribal entity based in one of the 10 Bay Area counties. If your community group that is based in one of these 10 area counties and you do not have a nonprofit status, you can use a California-based fiscal sponsor. So meaning that they do not have to be in one of these 10 Bay Area counties, but they do have to be within California. Also, a couple of other eligibility things is if you have received Living Cultures funding consecutively in the last 3 years, in 21, 20, and 2019, we ask that you sit out 1 year before reapplying. So if you've been a part of it for only 1 year or 2 years, you can apply again. But if you have done it in the last 3 years, then we just ask you to hold off this year. Also, if you are currently a grantee of the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation or the Walter and Ellis Haas Fund, you are not eligible at this time to apply for Living Cultures grant. Great, and then there's one more. So the last one in terms of eligibility is that your organization or the applicant organization needs to be under 250,000 in terms of your fiscal budget year. And then going into what we fund, cultural practices that strengthen continuity of traditional art forms and practices, such as workshops and gatherings of culture bearers for convenings or cultural transmission. Needed equipment and materials such as instruments, equipment for media sharing, costumes, etc. Investments to result in future revenue, meaning through perhaps your website that you need to have developed or to make a website, financial planning or consultant services for publications or archival documentation, intergenerational classes or other communal education programs as community programming, meaning we do not fund in school time, but if it's an after school program that you are initiating on your own, we can be supported by this grant. Mentorships with culture bears, honorary travel costs within California is acceptable. Projects to conserve or revitalize language in danger of extinction when carried out with an arts practice, such as language connected to the art practice of basket making. Some of the things that we do not fund are general operating support, projects whose main purpose is fundraising. Other things we do not fund is projects limited to an historical emphasis, projects based on the interpretation of a cultural tradition, projects based in educational institutions, as we were talking earlier. Out-of-state travel is not funded, and one-on-one apprenticeships are not funded. So if you are doing a mentor and you have several apprentices, you can do it as a class. That would be acceptable for a Living Cultures grant. We do not fund that. We do not fund, so we will fund the one project. Okay, moving on. Review criteria is very similar to the apprenticeship program. We're looking at the traditionality of cultural practice, the cultural significance within your community, cultural expertise in planning, the viability of the project, how you evaluate it on your own terms, and the community support. So on the application, we do ask for one letter of community support, and that can be from students who have been taking classes with the cultural practitioner, or it can be from a cultural organization that you're working with, something of that nature. And again, here the review process. Once all the applications have been submitted into our portal, we review them for accepted evaluation if they are match the Living Cultures eligibility. It goes to a panel recommendation of cultural arts practitioners, and then is passed along to our board here at Alliance for California Traditional Arts. Once it is approved, then we will make the notifications to the awardees. So in your proposal preparation, there are a few things you would want to get together, gather in order to, excuse me, to place it in Submittable, such as your EIN number of your nonprofit organization, your IRS letter showing you are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, or if you are a tribal status, federation designation is needed, and also proof of address to show you are located in one of the 10 eligible counties we were just talking about. In your proposal, there are 5 components. The first one is the proposal narrative. And the proposal narrative, there are 9 questions that we ask. And then there is a project budget that will be addressed, and your letter of community support, work samples and descriptions, depending on if you are doing material arts or performative arts, there are different kinds of samples that you can submit. And then there's an option of including supplemental materials such as program booklets, flyers, postcards that help describe the work that is done within your cultural community. So just to review a little bit about the project budget, there are two sections. One is the income side, the other is the expense side. So your request can be up to $5,000. It doesn't have to be, it could be under that, but no more than 5,000. And that your total income and expense grand totals should equal. And we'll go through an example of an application project budget. So on the income side here, there are 3 areas that you can put in. One is under earned income, such as ticket sales, concessions. There are then in the second section, if you're receiving other grants, say from NEA, and that you're also applying for ACTA for, in here we're saying for 5,000. And then there could be other income that you're bringing in from performances or lectures or otherwise that will help bring you to a certain grand total. In this case, we're using 9,000 as our grand total income. So 5,000, and we're going to show how that is split out between the Living Cultures grant and your other funding sources, which is your earned and other grants. So in the expense side, you can see there's 2 columns with the financial numbers. One column is specifically for ACTA support amount. So if you applying for 5,000, that side should add up to 5,000. And on the other support column, you will see other numbers. This 2,000 for, say, a project manager, and other expenses such as marketing, shipping, and equipment. And maybe you're going to use that money from NEA or from your earned income to pay for that portion, and ACTA's funding will pay for these other areas. And in this total ACTA support expense column where it says 5,000, this is an automated totaling system. So if you accidentally put in the project manager for 2,000 in this column, it will shift this number to 7,000, and in which case it won't let you finish putting in the amount, because it'll say that that number is too large because it can only be added up to 5,000. And so you're here on your grand total expense, you're saying 9,000 on income, and here's your 9,000 in total expense. And so they both add up correctly, and then you know you're good to go. In that Excel sheet that is given to you, also in the project budget, in the notes, we are asking you to keep it to 25 character limit. If you go over that, it just becomes a little harder to read that section. So if you can, that would be great. And just closing off here, we're just going to recap on these important dates. That May 3rd is the deadline for Living Cultures Grant, just before midnight. So you may want to try to get that in maybe May 1st if you can. Notifications will be given out June 15th. And the grant period is between July 15th of this year through July 15th of the following year. So again, you can apply online via Submittable. You can do that today or as soon as you get this program. start that application, and please contact me if you need a hard copy to turn in an application. It will be a little different this year, as that we'll be working together on that in order to get that done. And we are open to new applicants, so please pass this on to your other friends if you find that this may be useful for them as well. Okay, I'm going to pass this back on to Jennifer.
Yeah, we'll just take some questions now. We can field questions from folks regarding the Living Cultures program and the apprenticeship program. And go ahead and write your question in the chat box. We will read it out, or you can use the raise hand function and we will call on you. I think we're all ready for dinner. Be thinking about questions. In the meantime, I can start a little preview of the Submittable platform. Oh, of course, keep in touch with us. If you have not already, please subscribe to our monthly newsletter. We share a lot of wonderful opportunities from ACTA and other friends and partners. Follow us on social if you like. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so this is what an application looks like on the Submittable platform. So when you click on Apply Now on our website, you'll be directed to a portal which will have the English and Spanish versions of the apprenticeship program and the English and Spanish versions of the Living Cultures program. So find your application and you'll be dropped into the application. And at first, you'll see all of the guidelines. So all the information you need to review to have a sense of if you want to proceed or if you're eligible for the program. At the end of the guidelines, you will see a few eligibility questions first. So for instance, if you are interested in Living Cultures, you will respond and say, am I in one of these 10 Bay Area counties that make you eligible to apply? If you are, wonderful, you will proceed to the full application. If you're not, it will sort of lock you out at that juncture. And feel free to reach out to us with any questions if you're unclear on why you might not be eligible. But once you're able to move through those eligibility questions, it will actually drop you back up at the top of the guidelines. Keep scrolling back up, and here you will see the full application. So here's the apprenticeship application. I did just want to highlight a couple of things to be aware of. Right here for apprenticeship, you'll be able to read all about the invite collaborators feature, where you can invite, say, your mentor artist or your apprentice to directly type into the application alongside you. It works much like a shared Google Drive, Google Doc folder or document. You can see which question someone is on. It will be highlighted with their initials. So you just want to be mindful to not be typing into the same box at the same time. Another wonderful resource to be aware of is at the top of the Submittable platform, you'll see a language localization option. So if you want to access all of the information in Spanish, go ahead and click Espanol, and you'll see some of the baseline communications are translated into Spanish. Oops, excuse me. of course, the Spanish application is hand translated. But we'll go back. English. So here you can see some fields. You can type into your fields. You can save if you want to just tackle a little bit of the application at a time. You can fill out some information, hit save. You can return back to it. You do have to sign up for a Submittable account, and that's how you will be able to log back in and resume your application. You'll have a chance to upload work samples directly, or you can link to your work samples if they exist somewhere online. Looks like that. And I'll scroll down to the budget form. So the budget form for the apprenticeship and living cultures applications are fairly similar. You can see I actually put some test information in there prior. So it actually will automatically tally up your numbers, which is pretty handy. You'll see here it will automatically total. Similarly with mileage, it will calculate your mileage based on the annual IRS rate. So it's pretty simple. The total should be 3,000 once you put all of your information in for a key. And then you'll just hit submit. Once you have submit your application, you are able to go back in and reference the application that you submitted on your account. Also, we will be in communication with you over the messaging channel via Submittable. So please be sure to pay attention to that, especially if we have a question for you and we want to make sure to clarify or get some other information from you. We'll communicate that through your Submittable application messaging. Any other questions before we let you go? Well, we look forward to seeing what, learning about your work and seeing the wonderful material you present. Please reach out to Melody or myself if you have any other lingering questions. If you need support in Spanish, Betty will be your contact. Thank you, Betty. And good luck on everything, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you all.